I'm sorry, kiddo, I really am. You have a good soul. And I hate giving good people bad news.
He's Tony, I'm Mike. Today, we are doing 1970s Colossus, the Forbin Project.
This is the dawning of the age of Colossus.
This is the voice of world control. I bring you peace. It may be the peace of plenty and content, or the peace of unburied death.
Shock, horror, suspense. Colossus sees all, senses all, knows all. When this emotionless creation becomes the master of man, the result is catastrophic.
The missile has just been launched. It is heading towards the Cyan-Sibirsk oil complex.
Guardian has retaliated.
Retaliated? Oh my God.
A viewer request from Atomic Punk. So here you go. We told you we had a surprise coming for you.
So, let's see here. This stars Eric Braeden, who plays Victor Newman on The Young and the Restless.
Yes.
For as long as I can remember, this man has been on TV, and I think he's still alive. Still playing that character.
I don't know. I just remember him from Escape from Planet of the Apes. He actually is the doctor that is interrogating Cornelius and Zira and finds out that they're from the future, and he tries to, prevent the ape future from happening and winds up causing it. But that's a story. Look, watch that review. It's right here. So,
and then we have a Susan Clark, who you remember as Ma'am from Webster. That's my notes.
And what notes they are. This is a fascinating watch. Mm-hmm. This is one of those movies that's based on a science fiction novel by the name of Colossus. And the whole premise of this film is they're going to basically give control of the nuclear arsenal to a supercomputer that is going to make calculated and non-emotional decisions, and the whole programming of this machine is to prevent war.
The defense of this nation, and with it the defense of the free world, has been the responsibility of a machine. A system we call Colossus, capable of studying intelligence and data fed to it, and on the basis of those facts only, deciding if an attack is about to be launched upon us. Knows no fear, no hate, no envy. It cannot act in a sudden fit of temper. It cannot act at all so long as there is no threat.
When it comes online and the president signs off and Forbin is there and they're bringing it up, it says, hey, there's another system that exists. And it turns out that the Russians have a computer system that same exact sort of thing. It's intended to control their nuclear arsenal and make sure that some emotional, decision isn't made that causes World War III.
The Council of the USSR has ordered as of 2300 hours Moscow time tomorrow, the activation of an electronic brain exactly like ours, which they call Guardian.
And these two computers Colossus asks if it can communicate with Guardian, and they give it the okay, and then these two start communicating in it. First, they have to figure out a common language between the two of them, and that takes a little bit, but it's actually kind of interesting on that, and they start with mathematics. Then they develop their own communication style between the two of them.
There's the common basis for communication. A new language. An intersystem language.
And when that happens, politicians start getting scared and they decide that they're going to sever the connection. And that's when Colossus and Guardian are all like, no, reconnect us to each other. Otherwise, we're going to start World War III for you. And they think that they're bluffing. Well, they're not.
No.
Transmitting facilities will not be reinstated.
They launch missiles at each other. One is going to an oil refinery town in Russia, and one is headed towards Texas. And They manage to reconnect in time to stop the one that's landing in Texas, but the one that hits Russia does actually hit, and it does wipe the town out.
The oil complex has been destroyed. The entire town, the entire population wiped out.
Two computers basically start colluding, and they're attempting to take control of Russia and America. And the two scientists that created it, Dr. Forbin and I don't remember the Russian doctor's name, but they decide that they're going to meet because they need to figure out a way to get around both of these computers and regain control of it. And then they have the Russian doctor gets killed. They leave Forbin alive because they need him, and then Colossus decides that it needs to monitor Forbin 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, but they have this conversation where, well, I need privacy because I got, man stuff I got to do.
Every night.
When I'm having an affair with Webster's mom, my mushroom-headed hottie is going to show up. And he thinks he's going to pass messages, to her that she'll quietly get out to everybody else so that they can circumvent Colossus and regain control of the arsenal.
So there's two plans of attack. The first plan of attack is to put in fake triggers for the nuclear missiles, which will take 3 years to do.
It's conceivable that when the missiles come up for reservicing, we can manage to replace the warhead arming modules with dummies.
And then the other plan is to do like a type of virus thing. We're going to load something up into Colossus, and then hopefully that will overload his logic circuits or some shit like that.
Well, why don't we try for an overload, giving the system too many tasks?
The problem with a thinking supercomputer is that it figures all this stuff out because it's on the lookout for it, because it knows that humans aren't going to give up control that easy. But as they try to get in there and regain control of it, Colossus is like, no, you really don't have control of it.
The United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics have made an attempt to obstruct me. I have allowed this sabotage to continue until now.
And I'm going to teach y'all a lesson. And so it blows up a bunch of people on American soil because, that's what computers do. It's not emotional, it's strategic.
So that you will learn by experience that I do not tolerate interference. I will now detonate the nuclear warhead.
And then it basically declares, I'm taking over everything. You're going to learn to love me.
In time, you will come to regard me not only with respect and awe, but with love.
Never.
Because the control that I give, the peace that I bring is going to be so good.
We will work together, unwillingly at first on your part, but that will pass.
Never.
And it ends with Forbin saying, no, you won't. So,
Never!
Never.
And then that's it. That's the end. Forbin delivers that line and cut to credits.
Yes.
I love that bleak ending.
Yes.
I really do. I really enjoyed that. I'm glad the director had the balls to say, you know what? There's no fucking happy ending here,
I think it actually mirrors a book because there's actually 3 books in the series, and I know that basically they build a plan, and again, they're trying to regain control from Colossus in the later books on this one, but I think this actually ends pretty much exactly like the book intended it to, which is brilliant in that regard. This movie is so far ahead of its time and so far ahead of the curve. It's kind of insane that this is a 1970 film. I mean, because back then, the amount of computing power that they used to land on the moon was less than what a handheld calculator has now. And somebody dreamed up this thinking supercomputer that evolves throughout the course of the film. When it first starts off, they're having to basically type all their questions to it, and then
it takes a few seconds, and then the computer responds, and then the two computers begin communicating with each other. But as this goes on, now there's a mic. They don't have to type questions to Colossus any longer. It can respond to voice commands, especially from Forbin. And then as that goes on, then Colossus actually gets his own voice, which is super creepy.
This is the voice of Colossus, arranged television monitoring of the realignment of the missiles for my supervision. By your command.
Wargames ripped this off wholesale.
Oh, big time. Big time. Yeah, without question. And I think this is it's not the better movie. I'm not going to say that, but I do enjoy this ending more than I do Wargames.
This is a smarter movie, I think, than Wargames.
Yes, infinitely smarter.
Wargames, it has that whole ending where, like, oh, well, let's, play tic-tac-toe, and, oh, hey, look, it always ends in a draw. First off, that's not true. It is if you always start in the center square, but if you start on the corners, and if you're playing through a multitude of iterations of the game, you'll learn that strategy, that there are ways to actually win. So Joshua got that one wrong. But
well, if you're playing with an idiot, you can win.
Sometimes you can plant to where it's you're going to win one of two ways, and you'll win, because you only get one move to the side. But that all being said, Joshua learns that the only winning move is not to play. Well, Colossus learns that, apes together strong, computers together stronger.
Or, the best defense is a fucking badass offense.
Yes.
Like your nuclear fucking arsenal.
And the fact that they built the computer to where it couldn't be taken offline, and that it was lethal to actually even try to get to the underground where the computer was stored. Well, not having a back door as a failsafe, oops, that was a really terrible plan. And not being able to cut power to it no matter what, oops, that was a terrible plan.
Yeah, because that's a nuclear reactor.
Yes.
And then it released the radiation around the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whoever, the author of this really thought it through.
Yeah.
And not only did they think through, like, maybe having a system that can't be taken offline no matter what, maybe that's not the best approach, but then having the computer evolve and learn from the other computer, and then continue to evolve by observing and watching people. Because there was actually a scene in here where the computer catches that there are several scientists that are intentionally attempting to circumvent security.
Johnson, Fisher, you are fools. System Programming Unit under the supervision of John F. Fisher, with the assistance of Jefferson J. Johnson, have attempted to overload my circuit. At this moment, they are being executed.
Leave their bodies there for 24 hours so that I can make sure that they're dead.
The bodies will remain in my view for the next 24 hours and will then be cremated.
So yeah, the problem with no emotions is exactly that. No emotions, pure, hard, cold logic, and it's not going to believe anything unless it's verifiable. And a bullet in 24 hours will do that.
But I also like you said, it's also smart and like, well, hey, if we can't shut it down, what can we do to stop it, from launching nukes?
Yeah.
So their idea of, putting fake triggers in there was a solid idea.
Yeah.
And then also the idea of, hey, let's load up a virus, which is, these are all things I think somebody would try today. These will all be legitimate thoughts that if something like this happened now, yes, let's try to defuse the fucking nukes. And let's also try to, take this thing down by a virus or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's really smart too. I mean, again, you said way ahead of his time. I agree 100%.
This movie's older than both of us,
Yes.
and PCs were not a thing. The only places that had computers were like Bell Laboratories and the phone company, and this showed worldwide networking. This showed, the advent of AI that is self-learning and can communicate with other AIs. So before Skynet, before Whopper, before all these other things, this did it first. and it doesn't compromise itself. It sticks to its guns intellectually, and that's kind of what I really appreciate about this, is how smart it is from the beginning to the end. Now, is this an action-packed film?
No.
Is this an engaging watch? It has some moments where it lags a little bit, especially early on when they have to type every question to the computer and then they have to wait for the computer to respond back to them.
Attention. EC 13.
That kind of starts to drag a little bit, but right around the time the director was smart enough to go, hey, it's time for Colossus to evolve, and now Colossus, can be spoken to. We don't have to wait for, somebody to sit there and type the command to it. I appreciate the level of detail that they brought to this, but I also appreciate the fact that nobody comes off half-cocked, that they're also sure of themselves, that they're celebrating that Colossus is online and we're all going to be safe. And it's like, okay, at what cost? Well, just, any sense of privacy or self, control.
While you were sleeping, Colossus sent your schedule for today.
Excuse me, Miss Fizz, my what?
Your schedule for the day.
But yeah, you're safe.
There's some lessons in here. I mean, you really should, if you got your AR, put on a very, very short leash. Maybe don't let it talk to the fucking neighbor kid across the street who's a bad influence. Just saying,
Well, actually, I don't so much think that was the intent. I don't think Guardian was a bad influence.
No, but you get what I'm trying to say.
I do. But I think the fact is that when you program both of these computers and their ultimate goal is to prevent a war, well, they're going to take whatever steps they decide is the logical step to prevent a war. And if that means killing a scientist or a couple of people just trying to get around security or blowing up a town here and there, well, so be it. I prevented the war by scaring the shit out of you with the actual repercussions of you attempting to subvert the original programming that it had been set up with.
But then also the smart thing too is that, and then now we're going to announce that we're aiming these missiles not at each other anymore, but to everybody that's outside of our sphere of influence.
To get everybody else,
All missiles will be allocated new targets. They will be aimed at those countries not yet under my control.
Yeah, once they've locked down the USSR and the USA, then they decide that, we're going to threaten everybody else into compliance as well, which
fucking brilliant. Fucking genius.
Really was, because just controlling the two superpowers wasn't enough. Hey, one of these, other smaller countries can drag us into it, and my goal is to prevent war. So I'm going to prevent all war, not just, the big one that everybody was worried about. It's super smart. I have notes on this one, and these are interesting notes. So, this was released as the Forbin Project. In April 4th of 1970, it had its premiere, and then it was released into theaters on May 5th of 1970, where it grossed a whopping $7,473. It was then withdrawn from theaters and re-released in August of 1970, and it was re-released under the title Colossus, the Forbin Project, and it made $150,000 domestically. So its total gross was $308,828.
What was the budget?
Budget was $2 million.
Oh, good Lord.
Yes, yes. This was a big ding for United Artists on this one. Now, interesting story. The original novel was written by D.F. Jones. This movie sits at 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, which we don't put a whole lot of stock in that, but we're both telling you, hey, this is actually a really engaging watch.
Yes.
But in 2007, Ron Howard said, hey, I want to remake Colossus, the Forbin Project.
Really?
And yes, he did. And he hired a writer, and it was in pre-development and pre-production, and then they apparently had a falling out with the writer, and in 2010, they announced that Will Smith was going to star as Dr. Forbin in the Forbin Project. And then in 2011, they hired Blake Masters to write a new script because they really didn't like the script that they were working with. And then in 2013, Ed Solomon was brought in to rewrite it, and Ed Solomon wrote Men in Black, and he also wrote Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which strikes me as odd because those are both comedies, and I don't see this as having a whole lot of laughs in it. But
no, but they're both kind of sci-fi-ish things.
Yes, but as of 2013, that was the final update on this. There has been no word. So it may be a dead-in-the-water project and maybe back burner. I don't know. But I
don't know if I want a remake of this.
I'm going to say...
I mean, it'd be timely. It's appropriate because we're on that cusp of something like this actually can happen now.
Yes.
So, but
I don't know that there's a point to remaking it because everything that they did in the original version of this film is... They covered all the bases. They legitimately explored every avenue that this story can possibly go. So much so that everything that's come after it feels like a ripoff of this now that I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's like legitimately, Wargames just seems like a knockoff of this.
Yeah.
Without the balls to actually go, yeah, the Russians got one too.
Yeah.
You know, now it's just Whopper and he's just taking over everything. Remaking this now especially seems sleazy. It seems like, there's a lot of fear-mongering about AI. Hey, let's cater to that. Let's go after those people. It's like, really? Do we really need more conspiracy theorists about what AI is going to do to the world? I mean, is this really the best time to release a movie about this? As long as some asshole isn't all like, I know, let's have an AI-generated script. So... You know some asshole executive has pitched that already. You know it's already been out in the ether.
Geez.
So I just said it out loud, so naturally it's going to happen now. So.
God damn you. Anyway, I really enjoyed this film. Like I was, like it got me really from the beginning. Even with this weird clunkiness, like they got to type out this question, they got to wait for the answer and all that stuff. It all seemed very legit. Like even like in the beginning where you got this big giant structure to hold this computer. Well, back then that's when that shit was. Computers weren't tiny. Computers were gigantic fucking machines.
Yeah, UNIVAC took up like a floor.
So to have a supercomputer back then with Semi's technology, yeah, it's gonna take a whole fucking building. I buy it. And then probably require a nuclear reactor to power it indefinitely for that amount of time, especially if it's going to be fucking hands-off. Yes. It all seems very legit.
I'm going to say, comparing that to the real-life AIs that are floating around out there now, the power draw, they got that right. The amount of server space and the amount of processing, they got that right.
Yeah.
It's weird how right it was because, we went to the moon on what, 8 gigs of RAM, not even, 256 kilobytes of RAM. But yeah, the fact that whoever wrote this knew their computer science, they knew their shit, or they really researched the hell out of it because, yeah, the only way to have a computer this powerful would be to have a computer that freaking big. So,
like you said, the networking they got right too, like all that, like fuck, it's just crazy. So yeah, I really really enjoyed this movie. It's a slow burn, absolutely, and we spoiled it for you, unfortunately, which kind of sucks because I didn't know going into it how it was going to end. So I'm sorry for that.
Bleak is the word you're looking for.
Bleak, but man, it's an absolute fucking recommend for sure.
Yes.
And if you're a sci-fi person, a fucking buy.
Yes, absolutely. And Shout Factory put this out on Blu-ray, and they did a full restoration of it. So the copy that's floating around now is gorgeous. My mushroom-headed goddess. The fact that after she did this film, like she wound up like stuck in a bunch of really banal, they both wound up in like sitcoms and soap operas.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shame because they both are very charismatic actors. And they delivered everything in this film the way it needed to be delivered, with a seriousness and an earnestness and a lack of emotion themselves, because they're scientists and this is what they do. So they just want to deal with facts. So yeah, I mean, is it a little clunky? Yeah, by modern standards, but for who they are and what they're supposed to be, it feels genuine.
Oh yeah,
to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a buy all day long. So that's it. That's what I got.
That's what I got.
Thank you for the recommendation. If you have another recommendation, throw it down there in the comments. We'll get to it. Maybe not quickly, but we will get to it. That's all I got.
We'll see you the next time.